Okay, so today we're going to do Chapter 11 Test Review. Okay, so we're going to start with number 1. And it looks like it could be a little blurry, but you've got the paper right in front of you. So look at your example and we will do these together. So we have 5x minus 35 over 5x plus 25. So we're going to take out what they have in common on the top. So I'm going to take out a 5. And so I have x minus 7. At the bottom, that also has a 5. I'm going to take the 5 out there. And then I have x plus 5. Okay, now I can cancel the 5's out. And my final answer would be x minus 7 over x plus 5. And then I look at my answer choices here, and I see that it is going to be letter C. Okay, number 2, I'm going to go ahead and move my cursor down, or my screen down a little bit. We're going to do number 2. And I look at the top, and I can't take anything out of the top, so I'm just going to write my top of my fraction just like I have it. So 9x squared. The bottom of my fraction, I look to see, can I take something out? Well, I see that they both have an x squared, because one has x squared, one has x cubed. So I'm taking x squared out, because that's what they both have. X squared times what is going to give me an x squared, and it's going to be a 1. X squared minus, or times what is going to give me a negative 4x to the third, and it's going to be a negative 4x. Okay, that's what I have at the bottom. Now I can cross cancel. So at the top of my fraction, all I have left is 9. At the bottom, I have 1 minus 4x. And I look for my answer choices, and I see if I have that, and it looks to me like it's letter A. Number 3. Okay, I look at the top of my fraction, because I'm going to do the top as a separate problem and the bottom as a separate problem. I look at that and I say, oh, it's a trinomial. Can I take anything out? I cannot, so I'm going to go ahead and do my x. First times the last is negative 5. Add together to give me 4. Two numbers that multiply together to give me a negative 5, but add together to give me a 4. So it's going to be a positive 5 and a 1. So that is going to go at the top of my fraction. I don't need to use the box because the coefficient right here is just a 1. Alright, then I have x, and that's going to be a negative 1. So I need to make sure I put a negative 1 there. Okay, at the bottom I have 1 and a negative x. Okay, now it looks like I can cancel, but not quite. This is a positive 1, that's a negative 1. This is a positive x, that's a negative x. I have opposites. So I'm going to make sure that I multiply this by a negative 1, because when I multiply negative 1 times a positive 1, I get a negative 1. Negative 1 times a negative x is a positive x. Now, I'm not using this anymore. I have these two. Will these two cancel? And they will. Okay, so now this is what I have left. I have a negative 1, and I have an x plus 5. You're going to multiply this negative 1 into this quantity. So I have a negative x minus 5. And I look to see if I have that as an answer choice, and I do, and it's letter C. Okay, so make sure you do that. These are opposites, so multiply by a negative 1, but at the end you have to multiply what's left over by a negative 1, so change in the signs. Alright, number 4. We have two trinomials. I look at the top. Is there anything that I can take out? There's not. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my x. So my first times the last is negative 28. Add together to give me 3. Well, one's negative, one's positive. So it's going to be a 7 and a 4. So at the top of my fraction I have a x minus 4, and I have an x plus 7. At the bottom of my fraction, let's see, we'll use blue. I have an trinomial, nothing can be taken out, so I'm going to do my x again. I have a negative 35. One's negative, one's positive, and I'm going to add it together to give me a 2. So how about a 7 times a 5? That's 35. And I add them together, I get positive 2. So now I have x minus 5 and an x plus 7. These two will cancel. I have x minus 4 at the top and an x minus 5 at the bottom. So I'm going to look at my answer choices, and it looks like it's letter D. Okay, number 5. I look at my first part of my fraction right here, and I'm going to do each problem separately. So I'm looking here right now, and I have y squared minus 9, and hopefully you see this as y squared minus 3 squared. So that top right here is going to be y plus 3 and y minus 3. On the top of this fraction, it's just going to stay 3y. Okay, that was the top of our fractions. The bottom of the fractions, this one, it's just a negative 5y. This over here, this fraction, it's just going to stay y plus 3. Okay, so now I rewrote mine, so I can now hopefully cancel some things out. I see that these two quantities are the same. I can cancel them out. I can cancel this way. The y's will cancel. Okay, can I do anything with the y minus 3? No. Can I do anything with the 5 and the 3? Do they cancel? No. So at the top of my fraction I have a 3, and I have a y minus 3. And at the bottom of my fraction I have left a negative 5. So I look at my answer choices, and I'm looking, and it looks like it's going to be letter D. Okay, now let's look at 6 over here. 6 says find the reciprocal of the expression. And reciprocal is just flipping things over, leaving all the signs the same, but just flipping over. And that is letter, looking, flipped over. It's not A. Let's see, no, it's not A. It's, looks like, oh, see this negative right here? There's a negative out there, and it's really hard to see, so you're going to have to look really close, but there's a negative right here. It's a little extended. So as I look at that, because I'm not going to change the sign, it is going to be letter D, because I need to make sure I put a negative there, because there's one right there. So as you do this, look really close for those negative signs. And it's going to be that one, because you're going to keep that negative sign. So number 6 is D. Alright, so now number 7. Let's move this down some. Right, so we're going to look at number 7. I look at the top of my fraction, which is right here. This one is where I'm focusing right here. And I say, okay, I have x squared minus 4. But hopefully you see that as a special case. So at the top of my fraction I have x plus 2 and x minus 2. The bottom of our fraction, it looks just like it is x minus 8. Okay, over here, this is a division sign. So do you ever divide fractions? You don't. You multiply them. You take the reciprocal, or you flip this over. And I'm going to flip this over. And I'm no longer going to divide. I'm going to multiply. So on this first one over here, we have a fraction. We factored it. We keep what's at the bottom of that fraction because we can't do anything with that. This second fraction, I make it a fraction by putting a 1 over it, but it's a division problem, so I can't divide. I don't divide fractions, I multiply them by taking the reciprocal. Okay, now, is there something that we can cancel here? And I can cancel these two quantities. What do I have at the top of my fraction left? I have the x plus 2. What do I have at the bottom? I have the x minus 8. So now I look at my answer choices and see which one matches that answer. And so number 7 is D. Alright, next one. These are division also. So let's see if we can get our answer here. Okay, the top of our fraction, which I'm talking about, is this one right here. It's a trinomial, so I'm going to factor it. I'm going to factor it with my x. So first times the last is 20. Add together to give me 9. And it's going to be a 5 and a 4. So at the top of the fraction, it's going to be x plus 5 and x plus 4. The bottom of our fraction. And if you look closely, you should recognize this as a difference of squares, because I am looking right here and said, okay, this 25 can be written as 5 times 5. So now I'm going to rewrite that on the bottom of my fraction as x plus 5 and an x minus 5. Okay, it is a division problem, so that means I am going to multiply and I'm going to take the reciprocal. So now at the top it's going to be x minus 4. At the bottom it's going to be x plus 4, because I took this and I flipped them. Alright, so now I've got everything factored, I can start crossing things off. You can cross off this way, or this way. Alright, and so now let's go ahead and put our quantities here to remind us these are quantities. These two will cancel. I can cancel this one. What do I have left? I have x minus 4 over x minus 5. Okay, and I look at my answer choices and I look, and it looks like number 8 is going to be letter A, because there's my answer right there. Alright, number 9. This one I'm dividing, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it because I need a little bit of workspace here. I've got 12m to the 7th power minus 8m to the 5th plus 16m to the 4th plus 6m squared. And it's division, so when you have a division of a monomial, you're just going to draw your line under each of the terms, and we're going to write this monomial under each of them. In this case it's 4m to the 3rd. So we're going to write that under each term. And then we are going to just go through and do the math. This is a fraction, so we're going to simplify it. How many times will 4 go into 12? 3 times. With your dividing bases, we're going to subtract exponents. So it's going to be m to the 4th. Keep the negative sign. 4 will go into 8 two times. Subtract exponents. M to the 2nd. How many times will 4 go into 16? 4 times. And then subtract exponents. M to the 1st. And then 6 and 4, I can simplify that to 3 over 2. And now I have two m's up here. I have 3 m's at the bottom. I can get rid of 2 of them. And at the bottom I still have an m left. Or if you do it mathematically, you have your m at the top. You have your m squared at the bottom. You can subtract 2 and you get m to the negative 1. The negative 1, m goes to the bottom of your fraction. So here is my answer. And I'm going to go through and look at my answer choices. I'm looking for 3m to the 4th minus 2m to the 2nd plus 4m plus 3 over 2m. And it looks like it's letter B. So that was number 9. Number 10. Okay, now this is a long division problem because I have a trinomial. The trinomial divided by the binomial. So if you're just dividing by a monomial, you just draw the line. If you're doing a trinomial divided by a binomial, it's long division. So let's go ahead and set up our long division problem. First of all, look to see if the trinomial is in standard form. 2, 1, none, and it is. So that's what's going to go inside of my house. So it's going to be 6x squared minus 13x plus 2. And then outside of the fraction bar is, or the division bar, is 3x, and it's in standard form, minus 2. Alright, so now we're going to go 3x times what is 6x squared, and we say 2x. 3x, or 2 times 3 is 6, x times x, x squared. Then you're going to go 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, and we're going to keep the x, and we line that up under our x. Now, when you draw your line, change your sign. So this is gone. We have negative 13, positive 4, so that's going to be a negative 9x. You're going to bring down the positive 2. Okay, now we've got 3x times what is negative 9x, and it's going to be a negative 3. Negative 3 times 3x is negative 9x. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. When you draw your line, change your sign. So this is a 0, it's gone. You have a negative 6, a positive 2, so you have a negative 4. I'm going to keep the negative sign. I'm going to draw the 4 at the top of my fraction, and 3x minus 2 at the bottom. So here is my answer for number 10, and I'm going to go and I'm looking at it, and I've got the 2 fractions, and it looks like it's letter C. Okay, I'm not sure if it was recording when I did the last problem. Let me see if I can get rid of this thing that's here. Okay. All right, so what we did, in case it didn't record, I'm not sure if it did, we looked and saw if it had this common denominator, and it does. And so then I wrote it down here. I added the negative x and the negative x, got negative 2x, and then we canceled because these are now a fraction. I can cancel the x's, and then I can simplify 12, 2 over negative 2 over negative 12, which gives me a positive 1/6. All right, sorry, I didn't know if I recorded or not. Okay, number 12. Number 12 is a subtraction problem. So the best thing that we're going to do when we have quantities is go ahead and put our parentheses around all of them before we get started, just so we don't forget anything. Okay, now I look at my denominator. Is my denominator the same? And it is, so I'm going to keep it just like it is for now. We're adding or we're subtracting fractions, so we're just going to keep it. I have at the top, I have a 6x, and I also have a negative 1. Over here I have a negative sign. This is a subtraction problem. I put my parentheses. Remember, there's an invisible 1 right here, and that means I need to distribute that negative 1 to 7 to get a negative 7x, and then I'm going to distribute that negative 1 to the negative 6 to get it a positive 6. Okay, so now at the top of my fraction I have a 6x and a negative 7x. That's going to be a negative x. Then I have a negative 1 and a positive 6. It's going to be a positive 5. And at the bottom I have the x squared minus 25. And I look to see if there's an answer choice here. Okay, and there's not. So therefore, I've got to look and say, all right, at the bottom, can I make this a special case? Can I make this x plus 5? And can I make this an x minus 5? Okay, at the top, I still have my negative x minus 5, but I look and I see I don't have that. I think it's written like this. I can rewrite it like that. Do you see that these are opposites? So can I take and multiply this by a negative 1 and rewrite the top as keeping the negative x minus 5 and cancel that? So I'm not using this anymore, I'm using this one, cancel this one and this one. And at the top of my fraction, I have a negative 1. And at the bottom, I have an x plus 5. And so, is there an answer that has a negative 1 over x plus 5? And it looks like number 12 is going to be letter A. Let me find my cursor. That's the right answer. So a little bit of work there, factoring out the bottom, recognizing that's a special case, working through until you can find something that cancels and it matches an answer choice. All right, number 13. This again is a negative or a subtraction problem. There's a subtraction sign or negative sign right here. At the bottom, I have my x squared minus 49. I don't have quantities at the top, I just have a x. I'm going to keep the negative sign, and I have a 7. Alright, at this point, I look to see, do I have an answer choice there? And I don't. So my next part of this is going to be taking my x and rewriting this to 7 squared, so taking my x plus 7, and this is going to be an x minus 7. Charlie decided to bark at someone. Sorry about that. All right, now let's see. I've got a quantity up here. Can these two quantities now cancel? I'm not using this anymore. I factored it down here. Can these two quantities now cancel? And I can put in one placeholder there. So now I have 1 over x plus 7. And if I look at my answer choices, do I see an answer like that there? And it's going to be letter C. Alright, next problem, number 14, and then we'll do 15, and then we're done. Alright, this one, we're going to solve. We want to figure out what is x. So this is what we just did on 11.5, which is yesterday and the day before. Alright, make this a fraction and put a 1 under it. Do we have a common denominator? So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my problem. I need a little bit of workspace here. Minus 6 over x, and I'm going to make this negative 5 over 1. Okay, our common denominator is going to be what? Hopefully you see it. It's going to be 5x over 1. 5x over 1, and then 5x over 1. Can we cancel? Can the 5x and the 5x cancel here, and we end up with a 6? Can the x's cancel here, and we end up with negative 5 times 6, which is negative 30? And at the other side, nothing cancels, but I need to multiply 5 times negative 5 is negative 25x. Okay, now I'm going to add these together, and I get that is going to be 6 and a negative 30. Okay, so let's go ahead over here and go 30 minus 6, and it's going to be 24, but it's going to be negative 24 is equal to negative 25x. Next step, get x by itself, divide by negative 5, or 25, both sides. This becomes just an x, and this is a negative, and negative is positive 24 over 25. And then I would look at my answer choices and see if there is an answer like that, which is positive 24 and positive 25. So number 14, it looks like it's going to be letter A. Okay, and the last one, it says a group of college students is volunteering for homes for the community during their spring break. They are putting the finishing touches on a house they built. Working alone, Wade can paint a certain room in 7 hours. Rhonda can paint the same room in 6 hours. How long will it take them, working together, to paint the room? Round your answer to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So we're going to write our equation, and it's going to be, looking at this, Wade, he can build it in 7 hours. So it's be 1 over 7, that's Wade. And Rhonda can do it in 6 hours, so 1 over 6. But our question is, how long can they take and do it? How long will it take them to do it together? Okay, just like we've been doing, we want to get rid of the denominator and solve for t. So what's our common denominator? And I'm just going to choose one that pops out at me. It's going to be 42t. 42t and 42t. Okay, and remember these are all over 1, so it'll remind us to cross cancel. Now I'm going to go through, and 7 will go into 7 once, 7 will go into 42 6 times. So I have 6t. 6 will go into 6 once. 6 will go into 42 7 times. So we're at 70. And then the t's cancel for 42. Okay, now I'm going to add the t's together, so I'm going to get a 13t is equal to 42. Next step of this, I'm going to divide by 13. Divide by 13. So now we're going to go and figure out what our t is. So on the side, I'm going to say 13 will go into 42. Okay, so 13 will go into 42 how many times? Okay, and if we look here, 13 will go into 42. Let me find my cursor. It would be 3 times, because 13 times 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 1 is 30, so it's 39. Then I'm going to subtract, and this is going to be 3, and I'm going to put a decimal and add a 0, bring the 0 down. 13 will go into 30 2 times, and at this point I'm going to go ahead and stop and look to see, do I have an answer choice that's only one that has a 3? And if I look at A, I see it. There's my answer. But of course you could go through and you could finish the rest of it, but when you have multiple choice, you can pretty much stop at that point and not finish the rest of it because you found your answer already. So they say that's 3. Alright, okay, so that is the review for Chapter 11. Look at the problem several times, try to do your best. Good luck.